Hello, everybody. Today is Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022, and I am the Hulk 9000. And I trust you all are very well today. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, if I can get my words out. Blah, blah, blah. I trust you are all very well. House of the Dragon. Can you believe it? Is it a prequel to Game of Thrones? Possibly. Okay. We've got a lot to get through, my friends. So, as I always say, let's start as we mean to go on and get the dragons. Did you see what I did there? Out of the green room. First up, set your Jedi power wands to stunning and brave. We have the wonderful, not Brian. Here we go. Barathen.
Way, Baratheon, Brun. Good evening, Brun, and a very Vala Morgulis to the chat. All four of them.
You well, my friend?
Yes, I'm not too bad. How's your good self, Mr. Brown?
I'm broken from gardening still.
I was going to say, you don't sound pumped for this one.
My knees are shot.
Join the club.
Never mind. So you good, my friend? Yeah.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Shall we get the next guest out?
No. Shall we get the next dragon out?
Oh, go on.
Okay, there is good inside our next dragon, but we've not seen it yet. It's the Dark Sith Lord Chord.
Evening all.
Hello there.
Hello there. There are 3 dragons, aren't there, in total, if all the guests are dragons? And I think so. The established rule of Game of Thrones is that one gets shot in the face with a ballista, one of them gets turned into a zombie dragon, and then one of us will survive and commit genocide. So I don't know who will be left. I can do that. I'm up for genocide.
Brian is the odd man out. How's your channel going, my friend?
Actually, no, that makes you Daenerys Targaryen because you're in charge. So you are a nice little blonde girl. Channel's going okay, thank you very much. Yeah, the little She-Hulk video is 62,000 views, I think now. So can't complain. Yeah. And everyone seems to like it. Only a few people have called me an evil misogynist so far. Most of them seem to agree.
But you are.
Well, I know that, but apparently
we know that.
They all agree.
Oh, I'm pleased for you, mate. Well done.
Thank you.
You put the time in, you put the effort, you deserve it, mate.
I hope so.
You know what my next question is, don't you?
Bring out the last dragon.
Okay. And last but by no means least, the chief fire breather himself, the wise elder of the channel. It's the mega geek, Ian David Diaz.
I am definitely the last dragon.
Good film, that, The Last Dragon.
Yeah, I'm Shogun. Yeah. As I've saying to you in the green room, I don't think I'm going to be much use on this one because I really don't like. I haven't really. I'll put my cards on the table. I don't like King of Thrones, Lord of Thrones, whatever it's called. I have
King of the Toilets. Yes.
Yeah, no interest in it whatsoever. But I did watch this episode, so parts of it anyway. Chime in.
Would you like some good news?
Go on in.
In the chat, MC, hail all at Mr. Brown. That's me. Top Gun Maverick was excellent. Well done, MC. Nice one. Nice one.
Lord, did somebody insult you for the review of She-Hulk?
I think inevitably someone did, but most of them, like 95% of people, are very, very nice, and they all hate women too, so that's all good.
All right, I think it was me actually. It was another name.
Ghost account, yes.
Yeah, it's my ghost account. You misogynist. Yeah. I listened to it. It was really good, actually. I think you say you say you have 20 sentences that you could have said in one sentence, but that's your style, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Never use one where at least 15 will do.
Yeah, exactly.
Lord Chordway.
Yeah,
That's why everybody loves him.
Well, not everyone.
Okay, so hail chat, by the way. Hello, chat. We can see you, House of the Dragon, episode 1 discussion. Really looking forward to this one.
Better than She-Hulk, let's face it.
Oh God,
yeah, no, anything's better than She-Hulk, let's face that.
I can't unsee She-Hulk.
Well, it's because it's your profile picture in that
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as I say, I've got a thing for the She-Hulk. Oh.
No.
Okay, Mr. Brown Alliance, we need 1,000 subscribers, blah, blah, blah. Press that subscription button. I know you guys in the chat are already subscribed, but any lurkers, any people, please?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go then. House of the Dragon. This, as I said, this dropped on HBO Max in the US on Sunday. I think Sky simulcasts it at the same time in the UK. So, episode 1, the hairs of the dragon. Who would like to go first? Who's put the most effort into this stream and basically produced the stream?
You, Mr. Brown.
Not Brian. Would you like to go first? Your thoughts?
May I ask, first of all, did you watch the episode in question?
Might not have.
He didn't, in other words.
Moving on.
Yeah. Exactly.
I will just say, I will try and be as professional as I can. Not seeing.
Well, not by not watching it. It's not being very professional.
Yeah, you failed at the first hurdle there,
yeah,
Brown.
exactly.
I didn't watch Game of. It's just not my thing at all.
So I had to watch it because it's not my thing either. Yeah. No, sorry guys. I'm open to anything, but it's. I think I gave Lord of the Rings a go with the first 2 films. I didn't watch the third one, but anyway.
It's a good job Rennie isn't here.
Yeah, she'd have a go at you, mate.
She would. She has got me anyway.
She'll put you in a bag of dicks. That's what she would have done.
So, Brian, you produced the show. Fill your boots, my son. Thoughts?
Well, after the absolutely diabolical ending to Game of Thrones Season 8, I had very, very little interest in this latest Westerosi offering from HBO. However, during lockdown, I read the books, which thankfully inoculated me to the harmful effects of Dave and Dan. So I decided to give it a chance. Just as a disclaimer here, I've only watched this episode once, so whether or not it holds up on repeat viewings, I'll have to see. My initial thoughts, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I felt the characters were interesting from the get-go, and that was grounded pretty well by the acting. The story and pacing was good, especially for what is essentially setting the scene, a pilot episode. The cinematography was very good. Is that sorry?
It's a pilot, yes.
Yeah. The story and pacing, the cinematography was good for the most part, as was the CGI. I thought the soundtrack was impressive too, and I'm pretty glad they managed to keep the original composer. Is it Ramin Djawadi? I think that really helped with the kind of feel of the show. One thing I thought it did lack, though, was a sense of humour. I think with much of it being pretty uncomfortable viewing at times, it could maybe have benefited from some levity after some of the more intense scenes. I think without a Tyrion or a Jaime Lannister, I found that very apparent. So depending on your point of view, that may or not be a bad thing. Also, to my amazement, I found the show actually hitting me in the feels towards the end, not due to some kind of fan service, but actually through the story that was currently being told. And if it continues to do that, then I will proceed with some cautious optimism. So I think all in, I found it to be quite an immersive experience, other than a few Game of Thrones references like The Long Night that kind of dragged me back into reality. And I'm tentatively looking forward to the next episode.
In the chat, Glenn Q. Hello, Glenn. New face. After the GOT finale, I think a lot of people aren't ready to commit.
I can understand that completely. Yeah, I was the same, to be quite honest.
But it sounds like you're committing.
Do you know how many times have we been bitten by the first few episodes being okay or something, and then all of a sudden it goes beyond woke? Yeah, I can see how some of the what people would see as woke actually fits into the story and to the series as a whole, not just this series, but the previous seasons as a whole, because that has to happen. Kind of moving from just only kings to queens as well. So we'll see. Well, let's hope they don't waste it.
Lord, thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I think you've got kind of like a Goldilocks pants, because I think I'm more mid on this than Brian is. Maybe slightly less mid on this than Ian is. Yeah, the Game of Thrones point is interesting, as mentioned in chat. So I think it's in a lucky place in a sense, because it's not so far after Game of Thrones finished that everyone's forgotten how good Game of Thrones could be and was in its sort of second through fourth seasons. But it's far enough away that maybe some of the sting has gone out of season 8, and so a lot of people, I think, they are not overly interested in this. This is not a series that really benefits from massive interest, because the more massive interest it has, the more bad memories people bring in with it. I didn't find it particularly immersive. Because its approach is very different in important ways from Game of Thrones. So it's only a 10-episode run, I believe. They don't know if they're going to get another season, so it's quite obvious they are going to try and round off as complete a story as they can within a 10-episode run. But the problem when you've got a world as deep as anything George R.R. Martin has written, and with so many characters, with so many interplays, interactions, schemes, betrayals, all the hallmarks of George R.R. Martin's writing, is that if you're only going to have a 10-episode run, you don't have the time to do what Game of Thrones did, which was actually to introduce people to the world slowly, piecemeal, and through the eyes of novice characters who sort of learn along with you. So if you think back to like Game of Thrones, the first episode, you're given this very strong cast of protagonists who are all either novices totally, like the kids, or very inexperienced in their setting. So when Jon Snow goes to the far north, you see that part of the world for the first time as he does. When Sansa goes to King's Landing, you see the nobility part of the world for the first time. Sansa sees the underworld. Tyrion goes all over the place. Daenerys, of course, is rocking around the world, freeing slaves before she goes and genocides everyone. And that's a really, really effective dramatic device, because it brings you into a really complicated world very slowly, and it allows you time to inhabit the characters and the world itself, and you're not just bombarded with stuff. Whereas House of the Dragon doesn't have time to do that. So every single one of the characters you're presented with in this is in the middle or the end of their story. They all know each other intimately. There are no first impressions. They're all in the middle of schemes. The relationships are already built. And because it has to cram so much in, you're just thrust information, exposition. And I found that a little bit hard actually to get on with. I like the fact that it's a serious world they're building and that they treat the audience seriously enough not to pander. But I don't think it worked very well narratively. I don't think it was particularly compelling. I think it can be overwhelming at times. And I wasn't particularly invested in any of the characters. To the extent that I don't really care what happens to them at the moment. It's a really pretty series, and it's the first time I have a review scripted that isn't just taking the piss, which is a positive sign. But,
there's a first, folks.
Yeah, there is a first. But it is, I think it suffers for the amount of stuff it's trying to cram in so short a period of time.
Ian, follow that.
Well, the thing is, I can't, because, as I said, I watched it, and I was bored. I really didn't care about anyone. I actually, to tell you the truth, fell asleep halfway through it and woke up, and then didn't have the impetus to go back and see what I missed.
Well, that says it all then, doesn't it, really?
Well, I mean, it's not my cup of tea, really, at all.
Same here.
I mean, I don't know what the book is like. Is it close to the book? Can anyone tell me if it's close to the book? This episode's close to what you've read, Brian?
This portion of the book isn't featured too heavily in the original text.
Right.
The main overarching story is littered through it, and I think there's a Fire and Blood is the separate book, which I haven't read myself. So some of this will be new, some of it will be told within the main body of the stories, but the books go on for.
But the thing I notice about it, though, and I don't know if Lost Chord knows as well, is the CGI, it really does bother me now. There are some shots of the CGI that actually looks like matte paintings. I don't know if you noticed that in the beginning when the dragon was flying.
Yeah, I saw the
And
trailer,
yeah, and CGI, right, has this thing where it just chucks you out of it completely. And the first, so basically we had what's his name, the guy with the straight nose, what's his name again?
I had this exact problem. As I was scripting it as I was writing it, and I couldn't for the life of me remember what any of the fuckers were called.
What's
go back and look it up afterwards.
Fucker number one.
What's the British guy in the beginning when he was like saying the next person to be king is Paddy Constantine? Who's the fella that said that? He's famous, isn't he? He's a British actor.
Oh, do you mean it's Michael Carter who played Bib Fortuna?
No, the king who gave
Viserys. I think.
Yeah, what's he? Who plays him?
King. Viserys becomes the king, but the king at the very start is Jaehaerys, who is Michael Carter's.
All right, so he basically that bit's okay. I thought, wow, looks spectacular, whatever. And then after that scene, as I said, it goes into full CGI. And the thing about CGI, especially now, it just takes you out of it. You just got to look at Top Gun and Maverick, and you realize why Tom Cruise decided to try and shoot everything real, because everybody knows now that CGI takes you out of it. It doesn't pull you in. It's kind of like a glass. You're watching everything from a room, and you're only seeing through a glass, and you're not being part of what's going on. And that's what CGI does now. The dragon looked okay, but it didn't look great, if you know what I mean. So I don't know. I really not interested in seeing what's going to happen next. And how comes everybody has white hair? Well, a lot of people had white hair, didn't they, for some reason?
In the chat, Melvin Deeply, hello Melvin. It'll probably be okay for a season or two. I still don't trust them. I've read the books, so I now know what happens anyway.
I mean, I suspect that's going to be the real difference. People who've read the books will probably quite like this because it's not such a shock having all of the names, the lore thrown at you, because you're already familiar with at least some of it. Whereas if you haven't read I've not read the books, so they're on my list, but my list is long, and Mega Geek hasn't read the books. So I think between the two of us, that's one of those things that it's much harder for us to get immersed into it, just because that there is so much of the unfamiliar about it, which you're immediately presented with. Whereas, of course, Brian's read the books, and MC was it who's said that has read the books as well. So like maybe it's easier for you guys because it is such a lore heavy series, and like you've got that point of familiarity at the beginning that we don't have.
I was very interested in Rennie's takes, but she's so much damage was done by season 8. She bailed. So
yeah. Well, if there's one thing to be said for it, definitely infinitely better than that. I mean, if you compare this show to season 7 even, and then definitely to season 8, this is much better. I mean, it does actually. It's not stupid for a start. So that's enjoyable. I like the fact that it does have a high opinion of its audience.
Not stupid yet.
No, I should say yet. That's a good point.
In the chat, Matty, or is it Matt One? Hello, Matty. He's the backbone of Sunday Night. I've read the books. I loved this episode. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah,
he did. He was vacillating over it.
Got on the show, Matt, and bail me out here.
I think he's working.
Yeah,
shall I mention the elephant in the room?
Yeah, is it Nelly?
No, she fucked off to the circus. The Lord of the Rings show. What's it called? The Woke Rings.
Power.
Rings of cock, rings of bollocks.
Yeah.
We all know it's going to be poo-poo.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So we're definitely going to cover it.
Is this going to help House of the Dragon to be more popular and get that second and third series, do you think?
That's a good question, but it depends, as Lost Chord was saying, if the story is self-contained, there might not be room for... Well, I say there might not be room, but you know what executives are like. Once they get the money flowing again, they'll put out any old crap.
I mean, there's a few interviews with them, and they've said that they do have plans that they could take this in more directions. They could go on with it. They just don't know if they're going to be able to. So what they, I suspect, will try and do is to try and keep this one self-contained. If they get a second series, so much the better. I would say that House of the Dragon will inevitably look better by comparison. I mean, if Rings of Power paid half as much attention to its source material as House of the Dragon has done, then Rings of Power might not be set to be a complete fucking disaster. The fact that it hasn't and it will be a complete disaster means House of the Dragon it actually comes out at a really good time. This is an example of seriously written, quite lore-faithful, book-faithful fantasy, which is not approachable, but is at least treating the audience like adults, and it has that loyalty to its author. I reckon it probably will look very good by comparison. But Rings of Power will try and do this, but do it worse.
There you go. MC, I think House of the Dragon will be the better show. Bearing in mind it's HBO, isn't it? And that's Warner's, isn't it? And Dave Zasloff. So it could be a good show potentially.
I mean, the other way of looking at it is that because there are going to be time jumps, like really, really significant time jumps in this series. One of them is apparently like 10 years long, which again makes it a much more difficult narrative to follow, I suspect. But if they're trying to do like the whole history of House Targaryen, which I think is part of their ambition, or at least large parts of the history of the house, then it's sort of like it's more of a legendarium than it is a story. And so really, if you're watching it for plot, you probably won't ever like it. If you're watching it because you love the world it's building, then that's okay. But that's the same problem as Rings of Power should have had, because it's like comparable then to the Silmarillion as opposed to the Lord of the Rings. One is telling a story and one of them is world building. It will be interesting to watch them side by side and just to see what happens. So I do think this will be better.
I was surprised where they started the story. I thought they may have started at the initial conquests. Unless they're assuming that everybody knows what happens.
I don't.
Did you guys watch Game of Thrones? All of it?
I watched the first 2 seasons. I actually was there at the premiere and I met some of the stars and stuff like that, but I was quite excited when I saw the first episode because they kept going on about, brace yourself for sex, violence, and throwing a kid out of a window, the producer said. In the beginning, everybody started laughing because obviously they knew the books and I didn't know the books. But I watched the first episode and I thought, okay, I can get into this. And then when I started watching the series, it just didn't give you any answers. I remember the first episode had these zombie creatures in the forest and then suddenly you didn't hear from them again. And I heard they came back in season 3, but after season 2, I was like, I can't be watching this. You know what I mean? And I just stopped watching it. So
I was very, very late to the party. I didn't start watching it until about 2016, 17, believe it or not. I think I watched the first episode maybe a year before, and I thought, no, this is not for me. But I was assured that I should persevere. So I think I managed to get through the first season, which was a bit of a chore, and then it's just started to kind of reward after that.
Lord, did you watch them all?
Yeah, I watched all of it, and I think I did see them all basically as they were first airing. But sort of in the weird position, like everyone at the time either loved it or hated it, or just didn't care.
Hated it.
I didn't really feel either of those things. So I admired what it was doing. I never loved it. And it's like admiration as opposed to adoration. I could see what it was doing. It was visually striking. It was a really deep, complex, one of the most sort of complex plots and narratives that you'll find on TV, and kind of enjoyable for that reason. But also, it lost a lot of people, I think, for that reason. And the problem is that, of course, famously they didn't know how to end it. So you put all of that time and that effort in. You took the time to actually learn what the fuck was going on, all the names, all the interactions. You followed all the weaving plot points. And then you got the White Walkers, as Ian mentioned at the beginning, which are sort of consistently there but never really seen. And that's supposed to be the big thing to which everything builds. And then season 8 comes along and they run out of source material. They don't know what to do. So they just say, fuck it. That winter thing we were talking about, it doesn't really matter anymore. And that's the problem, because this show makes a reference to that, doesn't it, in this episode, when it references the winter to come. And then it reminds you that winter only lasts like 2 weeks and there's really nothing to worry about because Arya will just magically appear and stab the Night King. So what's the point?
I would say the Game of Thrones was water cooler TV. Every Monday morning when I was working, everybody would come in and just talk about it. And it was like, oh, God. Do you think this series is going to be the same water cooler on a Monday?
It depends. I think
I don't think anyone goes into a 9-to-5 job anymore. I think they're
not anymore.
Working from home. So being at the water cooler doesn't really work anymore.
I think they've lost so many bodies after the end of Game of Thrones season 8. I think it could be difficult for it to reach that. Having said that, first episode, something like 10 million views.
Is it really that high?
Wow.
Crazy figures.
Yeah, that's
is.
big.
It's definitely crazy.
I honestly think it might help it. I mean, if you remember, when Game of Thrones first comes along, everyone gets very excited when they see the trailer, but I don't remember it all that clearly. I don't think anyone really expected it. Like, it wasn't this long, clamoured for thing. It did sort of emerge quite quietly in terms of sort of fan expectation, and it built from that, and I think it benefited from not having this huge, massive TV audience that was already expecting such high things from it. People were pleasantly surprised. And so it might benefit this series if it has actually lost a large number of Game of Thrones fans, because it doesn't then bear that weight of expectation. It can actually do what the original series did, which is to try and take things a bit more slowly than otherwise, would be possible. So it might benefit from that. Maybe it has room to build. It does have room to build. It's just I don't think the story type is going to be as gripping. So I don't think it will be sort of water cooler. Not to mention, of course, the fact that, as Ian says, no one's actually in the fucking office anyway. So
I was watching Nerdrotic this evening, and they said, why didn't HBO Warner's just effectively remake season 8 of Game of Thrones instead of this?
Yeah, some jobbing YouTuber has decided that will be the fun rumor to peddle. Apparently, David Zaslav is considering remaking season 8. One of those long list of things YouTubers say that will absolutely never happen, but will get them lots of clicks.
George finished the books first, and he's not even finished the penultimate one.
I don't think he wants to finish them. I think he's just tired. He's just tired.
Yeah, I don't
He's
think
made
he
his
knows
money.
how.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's not money. I mean, it's partly money. It's partly because that is, you can't finish Game of Thrones. Like, stories have sort of a set number of ending types, and everyone sort of expects an ending type. And with something like Game of Thrones, that you can't have a satisfying ending, because that betrays the whole point of Game of Thrones. Like, I was thinking about this when I was sort of beginning the script for the reviews. Like, how could you end Game of Thrones in a Game of Thronesy way? Well, I reckon the only way I can think of doing that is to have all the humans effectively spend all their time fighting each other, and then the White Walkers come up behind them and win, and everyone's miserable. That's the
what about nuking it from orbit? Is the only way to be sure.
Well, Daenerys tried that with her dragon and ended up just killing everyone.
Yeah.
What puts me off this is dragons.
I'm not a big dragons person either.
But
I prefer them in this. It's when they start making them talk that it's shit.
No.
The effects. There's nothing wrong with the effects, but your brain tells you that it's not real. Especially when she came off, she started petting it. There's something about it that it's like it's just doesn't. How could we have gone from like Jurassic Park, where it looked real, to CGI being much better and it looking not real? I don't understand.
Is it time scale? They're having to bash it out quicker.
Well, I don't know. Even in the last Jurassic Park, those dinosaurs didn't look too good either. So
maybe there's a dumbing down on I think there's a dumbing down on everything, not just CGI, in real life as well. But that's just me.
Yeah.
That's just
I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. I don't know.
I think a lot of it is scale. I mean, so like Jurassic World Dominion, it's so, in terms of its scale, that the set pieces are so huge. You really struggle to do that with animatronics. The real genius for Jurassic Park is how claustrophobic it is. Like, everything's really, really closed in. You're in the jungle, you're in the dark, you're in the kitchen, you're in the corridors. And so, like, small scale like that forces people to fear, but it also allows you to do smaller scale set pieces, and then animatronics come into it, and then it looks more real. But like, you can't. It's hard to do it with like dragons flying around, destroying fleets of ships and all the rest of it. But maybe the answer to that is to don't write such big fucking set pieces. Maybe that's the idea.
What was interesting in the beginning, I don't know if you noticed, is when they had that shot where the dragon was flying, then they had this shot looking up where people were just walking and the dragon flies past, like it's just like an ordinary event. It's just a plane that gets flies. I was thinking to myself,
I'm hating it already.
Actually, I have to put my geek hat on for a second. During those times, that was supposed to be a regular occurrence that people probably wouldn't.
All right.
That strangely. It's not until it comes to the actual Game of Thrones that changes.
Right. I gotcha.
In the chat, Melvin Deeply, the trailer of Rings of Power looked like a video game. It looked like Assassin's Creed. Anybody see the trailer for that?
A deliberate body swerved it.
It looks shite.
What was that? Sorry, say that again.
The trailer for Rings of Power looked like a video game.
Yeah, we spoke about that, didn't we? Lenny Henry, 6 foot playing.
There was a new trailer that dropped today, and
was there? Oh dear!
It's just a complete woke fest.
I'm not interested. Seriously, I don't know anyone that's interested in.
I genuinely think this program House of Dragon will do well just off the back of that. Okay, should we do some slides?
Go
on. HBO home box office.
Harrenhal.
Yes. Which is?
It took 300 years to build, and it's currently where King Jaehaerys Targaryen is having receiving the decision of his councillors. Sorry?
No lighting.
No lighting. Electricity has been too high for the bill, so it's been turned off.
Is it in the wreckage of Harrenhal that features in Game of Thrones, doesn't it?
It does. That's where Tywin Lannister holds up for a while.
That was it.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Well, sounds interesting. My memory for it. I mean,
Ian, that's okay because neither do I.
Right, it's crazy, isn't it? I don't.
Okay, this is Brian.
This is King Jaehaerys Targaryen receiving the decision of his councillors. Which is kind of strange because they talk about democracy at the end of season 8 of Game of Thrones and they all mock it and laugh, but they're kind of doing that here.
Brian, would you like to take... Obviously, you've produced all these beautiful slides. Would you like to move through them at your own speed, as it were?
If you want. I was hoping Ben would come up. Ben has disappeared for the time being.
He's gone for a drink.
It looks great, though. I mean, the show looks fantastic. I mean, you got to give him that, right? Yeah. But it just, I don't know. I said this kind of stuff. I wasn't even interested in Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. I remember when the films came out as well.
Not my,
yeah.
I've never been a big fantasy fan, to be honest. But it was really just this and the quality of the writing that kind of sucked me in.
I wasn't even. I don't know about you, Mega Geek. Not even interested in Pete's Dragon.
Actually, I didn't actually never seen Pete's Dragon at all. And I remember there was the one with Sean Connery playing the dragon. I thought that was quite good. I saw that. You remember that one where can't remember what it was called, but Sean Connery did the voice of a dragon. Anybody remember that one?
Obviously, rings a bell. Yeah, it rings a bell. Yep.
It sounds like good old VHS days. I probably would have watched it.
But it was good effects. I think it was the early days of CGI.
Dragonheart.
Dragonheart. That's it. That's
well done, chat.
And then
there you go. Dragon is great.
Yeah, and then a long time ago, Disney did a film with I think one of the very first CGIs of a dragon, and it was quite good. And I can't remember what that one was called.
Did they remake? I'm sure. Did they not remake Pete's Dragon?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
No, that wasn't. That's not the one I was talking about. There was a film that Disney made that featured a dragon in it, and it was actually the effects were quite good for its time, but I can't remember what it was called, and it wasn't the one with Sean Connery's voice. It was another film with a dragon in it. I can't remember what it's called.
Not this one, Dragon Slayer.
That's it, Dragon Slayer. The effects were quite good in that. The effects were quite good in that. That was a Disney film, right? Dragon Slayer.
Pass.
And then there was one with the guy who played Batman, and it was set in London, and it was invaded by dragons. Do you remember that one as well? We're talking about dragons.
Reign of Fire, I think
that's
Reign
of
Fire.
Reign of Fire. Yeah. Anyway, back to this.
Onward, Brian.
In the middle here, as I said before, is Michael Carter, who is Bib Fortuna, the original.
All right.
Original and best in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Well, nothing more to say about that, really. Let's face it. It's a lot of people. They've hired a lot of people for this scene, haven't they?
There is. Paddy Considine was a bit of a surprise package to me. I'd only ever seen, I think, previously in Hot Fuzz, where he just played a comedic character, and then I saw him in Dead Man's Shoes, which was he wrote, and
I didn't think much of that.
It was pretty hardcore. I think I recommended it, but you didn't like it, did you?
It was all right. I just sometimes when people go on about how, or especially the critics, how great it is, and I sit down and I'm always disappointed. And that was one of those films I was disappointed with. But he was also in the Bourne, which I can't remember, some Bourne film where he was in Waterloo when he got shot. Yeah, I remember him in that. Yeah, he's a good actor.
So what's happening now, Brian?
So this is King Jaehaerys announcing the new heir. Is it going to be the lady? No, it's a fuck.
in the book,
non-binary,
is the book about the transition between a male king and then a female king? Is that what the book's about? Is that what the original text is?
In the story, I think the queens become allowed, but it's nothing. It's not really anything to do with it, to be quite honest. See, I'd have to read the entire Fire and Blood thing.
Right.
I would guess that they've kept this fairly faithful, because obviously it does have the link into Game of Thrones, and I think they do explain the Targaryen line of descent there, don't they? So they can't just invent, surely, female queens where there weren't any in the actual lore of the book. I don't think, anyway.
Who knows? They might have done.
Yeah.
I've never read the books. I wouldn't know.
Here you go. The mighty Kip Ellis. Hello, Kip. Dead Man's Shoes is set down the road from me in Matlock.
Matlock, isn't that a TV show?
Yeah, no,
as well, yes.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening on this one, Brian?
Rhaenys Targaryen getting the bums rush.
Oh, bums rush. That's American saying.
Targaryen sigil. I wish Z was here to read this out in his C3PO voice for us.
I think we've got the man who can, though.
About this. It's the Lord of the Rings actually accomplishes sort of the intro voiceover thing about as well as you can do it. But I don't think there was one at the beginning of Game of Thrones. And this was sort of the first example of where, okay, you're going to have to remember a lot of stuff straight from the off in this. And that's why it has to actually do so much exposition just by an opening monologue, even. If you can avoid doing that, I think it's usually a good idea to. Yeah.
Sorry,
we actually cut the next slide, but it actually transitions. So the only words that are left on the screen are 172 years before Daenerys Targaryen, just in case you
Also, I was quite surprised, Brian. I was quite surprised that they didn't have an opening sequence like the original, with the cogs and everything, which I thought was quite clever. They didn't really have anything in the beginning.
There is no opening. I completely missed that. Yeah.
I'll never see it. The next episode, it might have it.
Yeah, probably. You're right. Probably.
Will be a time shift just coming up shortly.
The opening titles of Game of Thrones was the thing where I thought, what the fuck is this shit? And I just turned it off. I couldn't get past the first off. Yeah, off. And then watched it again.
Give me the remote. Off. Bang. Gone.
I have that whenever I hear the Archers come on the radio.
So this is young Princess Rhaenyra Airborne.
Does she get any flying miles for that? Does she know where the exits are and stuff?
Dragon Airlines.
Dragon Airlines, yeah.
Carbon offset program. Dragons are bloody expensive for that.
In the chat, if I may, at the Mega Geek that you're in, I think they will have proper titles next episode.
That's true, because when Dexter was the first pilot of Dexter, he didn't have the famous opening credits. It's only the second episode. So, yeah.
The alternative is they do it sort of documentary style, and every episode has a time skip, and every episode has opening script to fill in the time, which they might do, possibly.
Time Prophet says the Mega Geek will be as old as Spielberg by the time George R.R. Martin finishes the last book. I don't think he'll finish it.
I did listen to some of Gary's stuff, because Gary's really, really into this stuff, and I can't see, but I really can't see why. But he goes on about how he won't finish that, and he's quite abrasive about it as well when he get off his arse and write the book. But you know what? I get the strange feeling that he doesn't want to do it. He just doesn't want to do it, and he doesn't care anymore. and he
Why
just
doesn't he
wants
just
to.
get somebody to write it for him? Ghostwrite it.
Well,
Ryan Johnson could do it, couldn't he?
Roundhead Johnson could do it.
Such a good track record.
I don't know.
Question for me, Time Prophet at Mr. Brown, that's me. Do you think Game of Thrones will use turquoise titles next episode? Yes.
Maybe.
Moving on. Go Bright.
Oh, see, you've adjusted the aspect ratio. Well done, Brown. Did you notice that David Kahn here in this scene? He's the crazy doctor from Jam, Chris Morris.
Oh, did not know that. Who is this girl? She has a strange face.
I thought exactly the same thing, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was.
She's Australian. She's in her early 20s. I thought she looked about 12.
She does look very young, doesn't she? Oh, she does look. Yes, she's got a very strange face. I was watching. I was thinking, I haven't seen a strange face since that boy in what's that stupid? Oh no, it's gone out of my head. Sorry, I'll stop.
Millie Alcock's on it.
Comment just really quickly. We were
Is that her
talking
name?
about surely they can't just make shit up, but it sounds like they have. Because apparently, according to Shane, she's 8 years old in the books at this point. Friend is older, not really her friend. She was nursing the old king, who is already dead in the book, apparently. So maybe they are just making it all up. Yay!
Am I mistaken? But did the king at the ending tell the girl to go and prostitute herself? At the ending?
Is that a different film you were watching?
No. You remember the ending where he says, "I wear the dress and all that." Remember the ending of the episode?
Surely for ceremonial, surely.
Nah, he was suggesting more. He was suggesting more than that.
Oh dear.
Sleep your way to power.
He was because remember he said wear the dress that your mother wore. Do you remember at the ending? He was, if you listen to that very carefully, what he's saying is go and cheer him up, sleep with him. And you're not wearing appropriate gear. Wear the dress.
Oh, sorry, Otto Hightower, Rhys Evans.
Yeah.
Ah, right. Well, I did think that was a bit kind of strange.
You didn't think he was suggesting that?
No, I did at the start, and then the way the scene played out, it was as if it was all quite innocent.
Oh no, I didn't think. Knowing that, as I said, I only seen the first 2 seasons, but knowing the show, he's probably saying, "Prostitute yourself, young lady." Probably saying that.
Here you go, folks. Mephisto's RC's Hello Mephisto. G.R.R. Martin was hardly known until got made into a TV series and made him millions.
Yeah.
He owes those fans who invested in those books. If he doesn't want to do it, he should just get somebody to ghostwrite it, and then he'll kind of,
But he doesn't
keep an eye over it.
As long as it's not Dan and Dave.
Yeah.
Because I know he said he's struggled with writer's block and things, but it hasn't stopped him going away and writing lots of other stuff. I mean, he's behind Elden Ring, the video game that came out, very popular, very successful. He wrote all the lore, all the backstory, all the mythology for that. I'm sure isn't he writing a sci-fi series as well, or has done quite recently? So he is still writing. I just genuinely don't think he knows how to finish this, and so is just hoping he dies before he has to.
Yeah, that's what you know. What, Lord, that's exactly what I think. I think he's just come to the point where, you know what, people are arguing over something I created. Let them argue. I don't care. I'm just going to enjoy my life now. I've done the best I can. I don't think he even cares if somebody else takes over. That's the impression I get anyway. I don't know about you guys.
He was labouring, obviously, for a long time before the last episode was aired, but I wonder if the reaction to that may have had something to do with him completely down in tools.
Maybe.
Imagine if that was actually his plan all along, and everyone hated it, and so he had to tear up all of his plans.
King's Landing, Croatia.
Oh, sorry. It was also this weird relationship that he had with the writer, because I know he said some disobliging things about season 8 when that came out, but he was listed as an advisor and as a consultant, and I think as one of the producers. So he was involved in season 8 in some capacity, but he came out after the massive negative reaction, I'm sure, and did an interview saying, well, of course, the ending to the book won't be the same as this. And since then, he said, I've got a lot more involvement in this series, House of the Dragon, than I had with the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, because there all I contributed was, the characters and the world, and nothing to the story. So but then if he was involved in advising them, then they must surely have run their ideas past him. Surely, it will be interesting if it ever does emerge exactly how much input he did have over season 8 in particular. Well, 7 and 8, because it all went wrong in 7 as well. But I guess we'll never know.
He just told Dan and Dave essentially where he wanted the characters to be at the very end. They've tried to accommodate that, but he hasn't worked out how he was going to get them there, and it ended up Dan and Dave made some pretty ropey decisions. It takes the characters to do something completely out of character to get them to go where they wanted to go in the first place.
John, go up beyond the wall. Why there are no White Walkers? Well, because you can't stay here because the Unsullied are here. Yeah, but the Unsullied are leaving. So why? Why was any of that stuff happening?
I think it was the Jaime Lannister one that got me the worst.
Oh, God.
He's had his character arc, he's come out a different person, or maybe the person he was supposed to be, and then because we have to get him back, it's all of a sudden, I don't give a shit about the people in King's Landing. It's like you just risked your entire reputation, everything for the last 20 years. Anyway, moving on. Shall we just fire through these? Because
what's happening? Really... what's happening on these?
Yeah, this is just Princess and Alicent making their way to the Red Keep. And this is Alicent's mother, who is currently pregnant with the heir to the throne.
What's her name? Is it Alicent or Ellison? Because she's currently just listed in my script as Girl 2.
Alicent with a strong T. Alicent Hightower.
Thank you very much.
My name's Hightower. Good grief.
Well, I think they might have race swapped one of the guys and is black. I was hoping they would make him Hightower, and that would make it easier for us Police Academy fans to remember who he is.
That's hilarious. Just chugged to my water there.
Who was it? They race swapped one of the Targaryens, didn't they? That was... I did actually look him up, and I've forgotten who it is already.
We'll get to that in just a little second. I think it's Lord Corley's.
That's the one. It's never a guy. I think it's kind of revealing that we do actually have to test our minds to remember who the key characters are. But that was it's this established rule that they seem to have with every new show. You race swap before, obviously, that's announced. You accuse fans of racism in a bid to do something. And then, and he said, well, of course, you were all happy when folk like me, as in black people, were only playing pirates and savages. And I sort of cast my mind back to Game of Thrones, and no, that's not actually what it was. Game of Thrones was an incredibly diverse show. Whereas in this one, because all the Targaryens, they are actually described, aren't they, in the book as being very pale of skin. I think they've got purple eyes. They've all got very blonde hair. He keeps the blonde hair. He's the only non-very pale one, and I mean, you could find, I'm sure, some reason in the law that doesn't preclude that as a possibility. It just seems a bit weird that they chose one of the opposite-looking characters to race swap as part of a whole family who were all supposed to look very similar. It was a slightly strange decision.
Also, you say that they're supposed to have blonde hair. Are you referring to this girl here is meant to have blonde hair? Because it looks white. It doesn't look blonde at all.
It's like very white blonde. I think white might be a better description for it. But they all have the same hair color anyway. All the Targaryens do.
This is who? Princess... What's her name?
No, it's
Rhaenyra.
What does this mean? She has a Luke Skywalker Tatooine sunset moment. She's looking out the window at two suns or something.
Not quite. This is her thinking towards the future. They're asking her basically to do her duty, produce kids. That's all this is a bit woke now I think about it. But she would rather be more of a warrior. Okay. And there's Emma.
Do they all have white hair?
The Targaryen dynasty do.
Oh, okay.
Supposed to have violet eyes, but that's not really in the show. This is King Viserys holding his council.
Is this before? Because there's the bloodshed moment of the putting down of alleged criminals. This is before that. Does that happen later?
It's before that.
Yeah.
I've got this heavily censored, folks, so we don't need to cross our legs. This is the aforementioned Lord Corley's Valerion and Otto Hightower. I think Rhys Evans was the star. It didn't have much to do, but I thought he was the star performer.
Oh, is that Rhys Evans? Yeah, I noticed him on the.
He's come a long way from pouring vodka in his eye and Kevin and Perry go large.
Yeah.
Which is just a lowly cupbearer at this point. Barry Considine there sniffing his own farts, it appears.
But this was the opportunity for her to sort of take on the, well, you could sort of call it the Arya Stark moment just because of the cup-bearing similarity. But like, if there's one character that you can look at in this entire cast and you think, okay, this is the person they should probably really focus on, and like we see this entire world through her eyes because she's the youngest and the most inexperienced. So we learn much more about what happens if they do that. But she's barely in it. I mean, she's in it for a few extended scenes, but there's large parts in the middle where she's not. Which was an odd decision come the end because she does turn out to be one of the, if not the most important characters. But like here, yeah, it would have been useful, I think, to have more from her experience and her viewpoint, because this is the first one of a couple or three maybe of very lengthy, exposition-packed, quite politically intriguing exchanges at the table. And again, if you've got a really long series like Game of Thrones was, that's fine because you can intersperse that, you can do it slowly. But there is so much information packed into all of these meeting scenes. It does sort of like, well, this person whose name I don't remember and whose face I can't attach to it is doing this, and we don't like that, but we have to appease him because he has this relationship to this other person whose name I don't remember, and so on and so on and so on and so on. It's just, it needs more time, I think, than it's got. Sometimes
it doesn't have one direct protagonist either, which might have helped for a slightly shorter. Whereas Game of Thrones has several that all their own stories weave in and out. It will be interesting to see where this goes if they don't have that very element that you discussed. Yeah, this is the council business. The king's coming heir is discussed, and the tourney is planned. And here's Doctor Who, Matt Smith.
That's well shot.
It is. There's a few really nice shots. I would like to have kept a few more, but
is he a cunt?
I don't know. I fell asleep after he gave her the chain thing.
Oh, that's when he's being nice. Then he does turn into an absolute dick.
Oh, right, okay.
He's the sort of the power hungry brother of the king who also aspires to rule, and so this whole setup throughout this episode is sort of building to this culmination where he's also the heir at this point. It's building to his sort of dethronement, and then that of course sets up the conflict between them. The rest of the show goes on to be.
In the chat, MC Matt Smith was excellent in this.
I thought he looked like an alcoholic Legolas all the way through.
Thing is, though, isn't that dangerous to climb up on them? Look at how many spiky bits there are.
You wouldn't want to do it while drunk. You would die.
In the books, they're actually about 30 feet high.
All right.
Believe it or not. And one of the main differences between the Game of Thrones series and this was they put a hell of a lot more swords in it, because George R.R. Martin was apparently disgusted when he saw what they come up with for the final Iron Throne. So this is probably a bit of a compromise going on here.
Well, it's famous now, isn't it? So.
Yeah. This is a Valyrian steel necklace.
Speak up, Ryan.
It's weird. Nice photography, though. Photography is really good in it.
Nice bit of framing. Princess Rhaena is helped with her studies by Alicent. And again, sure, some of us with Game of Thrones track record were possibly looking for a bit of les action here, but not to be.
Was she not meant to be 8 or something, that girl?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Honest officer, I didn't know that.
Yeah, 8 in the books.
Okay, this is the Maester attending a lesion. King Viserys back, which is indicating that he's possibly on his way out.
Well, he's not got hemorrhoids.
Back hemorrhoids.
Well, after that video that Swap Shop posted online, I'm seeing this through an entirely different lens. Anyway, moving on rapidly.
Okay.
There's some hint, isn't there? Doesn't the Maester have some line about sicknesses of the mind, sicknesses of the body, which is supposed to sort of foreshadow? I thought I heard that. I might have to go and rewatch that scene. I'm sure he sort of does some foreshadowing of a descent into some kind of madness, or at least his sort of mental affliction coming through.
I took that more as a kind of a demise of his reign, but
Yeah. No, actually, that's probably a better reading. Yeah, didn't think of that. That's probably true. I don't remember which of the Targaryens goes mad.
Apparently, it's like flipping a coin, they say.
Yes, that was the line.
Thing is, though, they did this in the first season, didn't they? They actually got you to like Sean Bean, and then he got his head cut off. So they're probably getting you to like Paddy, and then they're going to kill him or something, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that was very well done. His old story. It's kind of clever. It's what makes Game of Thrones really, well, at the time, quite unique as a series. Was this idea that not only will all heroes will fail, and actually quite brutally, and the cynics and the misers and the horrible people are much more likely to survive. And that decapitation scene was the first sort of real big shock moment, I think, maybe.
Well, Sean Bean always gets killed in everything that he appears in.
He does.
Anyway.
He always dies. It's like Liam Neeson is either always dies or one of his relatives is dead. Like it's every film he's in.
The man's a walking spoiler. And this is one of the most horrendous moments as Daemon rouses his troops together. The Gold Cloaks, the City Watches, are also known as. That's them pouring into the city, just about to start lobbing bits off of people.
This must cost a lot of money.
Yeah, I bet it has a huge budget. I had to rewind this scene because I thought they were very clearly setting up the conflict between them, and I wasn't paying a huge amount of attention when this particular bit was happening. My first thought was, they've jumped immediately to like civil war and a coup, but no, it's not that. It's just him sort of asserting his power. He's putting down criminals, as he calls them, and then this leads to another big court scene. But
something similar happens. Daenerys does something almost exactly the same. Which is an Esteros. And the minute I saw them getting them together, I went, oh God, here we go. This is going to be vile. And it surely was.
Is everything in the dark on this program?
It's actually, I've got two screens here, and one it's totally black, and the other one it's absolutely perfect. Anyway, as well. Murdering the Stream is a murderer about to be done in. The question I've got here is, if the City Watch already knew that all these people were criminals, weren't they previously punished? Or did they get away with it? Or are they just picking people at random and pretending or accusing them of stuff they've not done just so they can send a message?
I think that was the implications. Like some of them, I think they probably did know to be criminals, but the area itself, I think he says, was sort of crime infested, and he was establishing order in line with the law of the land. But the implication is quite heavily that actually that's not what he's doing. I mean, there might be some legitimate criminals there, but this is sort of an indiscriminate, quite bloodthirsty, typically sort of later Targaryen display of power and bloodlust.
Here you go, folks. Matai, the budget is nearly or roughly $200 million. Wow.
Bloody hell.
Not 75 billion like Rings of Power.
May I just say to Melvin deeply in the chat, the answer is never. Absolutely never. It's not happening.
Never.
Never. There's the cart being put away. Terrorized residents. This is Demon attempted to justify his actions, and the tensions between himself and Otto Hightower rise. But I thought it was quite nicely done all the way through this, the way that they seem to get under each other's skin. It sets it up quite nicely. Not just this scene, but all the way through.
So you were a fan, Brian, of did you watch all the seasons?
I did, but mostly I think I binge watched maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I binge watched a whole load of them, but I didn't. I was very, very late to the party.
Right.
This is I haven't read these books, but so many details as serially through the books.
Yeah, I also was very late to the party, but I turned it off after 15 minutes. I thought, shite.
Then wasn't there somebody called Jon Snow in it?
Not the newsreader either.
That's what I thought when I heard it. I was like, "What? Jon Snow's in it?"
Hero-ish type of much of the first several seasons. One of those is like
played by
Kit. Yes, Kit Harington, but very much let down. So there's a couple of things that sort of come out here. This is when there's a number of set pieces which are almost shot for shot taken from season 1 of Game of Thrones. So this javelin tournament is very, very similar to the javelin tournament that they are javelin fucking jousting tournament they have in the first season of Game of Thrones, including like, and it's not just in terms of setting, but it's also in terms of the way the things actually pan out. So you have that in Game of Thrones, the jousting tournament is kind of interrupted when the Mountain loses his temper and then there's a fight. Well, in this case, there's knights who lose their temper and they have a fight, and so the tournament sort of descends. And then there's the sort of the conflict between Matt Smith, Doctor Who, and the other knight as well, which sort of mirrors-ish, not perfectly, but a little bit, the fight between the Hound and between the Mountain and Solaris. And the giving of favors as well. But it's also, this is one of those areas, I think, where the difference in approach is, because this scene in the Game of Thrones version has Sansa Stark, who's brand new to the city. And so all the exposition you get in dialogue is for the benefit of someone who's never been there before. So we're learning at exactly the same time as she is what the power play is, what the characters are, who they are, what their relationships are, how she's supposed to think and act. Whereas in this case, Princess names... she's obviously, she already knows everyone, so there is the same exposition scene, but there's so much more detail and depth and foreknowledge that goes into it because she is established in this world already, which makes it, I think, for people like me and Ian probably who haven't read the books, it makes it harder to follow because we don't have the same familiarity that someone who has read the books has with these particular characters.
Well said.
As he's not on the panel tonight, we just ask Matt, how did he find following it? Matt 1, can you give us a yay or nay, good or bad? I think Matt would have found it okay if he knows the...
the episode, he enjoyed it. He said he enjoyed it.
No, I mean, not just the episode, but being able to follow it. It's funny, actually, just knowing what I know, you forget that these kind of things, how they were built up in the previous, very first series, Game of Thrones, you just kind of take it for granted. I think this is what the show must be doing as well, but just going by what Ian has been saying, the exposition isn't possibly as good as it could be. But you're having me do a 180 here.
I thought that was who's that guy with the beard?
Count Dangler. And this is Daemon Targaryen. He's picking out, of all people, Otto Hightower's son. Crowd delighted.
What is the reason he picks him? Because I don't recall it.
They are not getting on, to put it mildly. I think Otto recognises what a danger he could be to the realm if given the keys.
Okay.
So he's trying to keep him away, and at every opportunity he's trying to noise him up.
That's that big mask he's got on there, isn't it? It's like Thor's mask, isn't it?
I remember seeing some concept art for Game of Thrones previously, and it's almost identical to that. I think it would have been... Targaryen. God, I can't remember. Rhaegar. It would have been Rhaegar Targaryen. Or on the chest, he's wearing something.
In the chat, Matt, I read the book. I felt they are following it pretty well.
Otto glares back.
Is that Bill Patterson on the left?
It is. It is indeed. Actually, I've got a cheek saying this, but there's a couple of Scottish guys in this, and I found the accents really off-putting. If it's not RP or some kind of Middle East type accent, it really takes me right out of the show.
Brian, you do realise when you speak, your sentence trails off. I don't know whether you're stepping away from the mic or when
sorry.
No, it's all right.
My head about 3 inches away from it. Anytime I move my mouth to the left, right, up or down, it goes straight off.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
This is the joust again. I'll just go through, just fire through these, I think. Hightower Jr.
Oh dear.
Unseated. And unceremoniously dragged away.
What's the prize? What are they jousting for?
I don't think it's even actually said at this point. It's usually a prize in terms of number of gold dragons, silver dragons, but seeing as how Prince Daemon is in about it, I shouldn't think he would need any.
And there's the competition as well, like for the favour of young women, as in fact does happen at the end of this one. He asks for the princess's favour. Well, not in this show, but
it wasn't a thing though, was it? The age thing wasn't a thing, in he's established that, hasn't he? Or has he? In the first season, right?
In Game of Thrones, I think they did also age them, didn't they? I think they were, some of the kids I think were younger.
It was very murky territory, I think, with Daenerys. She is supposed to be 13 in that, and some of the...
Shane says money, it was 40,000 in GOT. Are they jousting for money?
It's usually a combination of money, status, and favours. But that's the medieval
8-year-olds.
way of doing it, anyway. Well, in those times, yes, actually. And in some parts of the world today, still the same.
Disney headquarters, allegedly. This is Damon asking for the favour of Alison Hightower.
It's not Doctor Who, is it, Ian?
No, well, no. As I said, I found it a slog, though, when I was awake. I found it a bit of a slog. I mean, it's got a lot of talking in it, but as Lord Cord says, it's a lot. There's a lot of explanation, but it's like it's really for the people who read the book, because they know those characters, don't they? Unlike someone that comes in fresh, we don't know. I don't know anything about anything really. Anyway,
Time Prophet in the chat. We have kings of England who married 13-year-old girls. Alright.
This is a kind of Phantom Menace-esque.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, I thought that.
Yeah, that shot particularly is.
Comparing it to the very first season, you think...
thing is, though...
our budget's increased.
It just, you look at that, it's not real. It doesn't come across as real at all. You know it's a CGI thing. When you watch Ben-Hur, you know there's thousands of people there. You watch this, you're like, those are not real. Your mind, that's what I'm saying, it chucks me out of it. My mind subconsciously says it's not real.
Do you think they're trying to stylize it a little bit? And because they're trying to stylize it, it's throwing you out of the experience?
No, I don't think it's anything to do with this. I just think it's in general now. When I see CGI on screen, in general now, my mind just tells me it's not real, therefore pushing me away from what's actually happening on screen. And I think, as I said, sorry, no, I just saying that I think Tom Cruise and a lot of filmmakers are realizing that now, to put, so they're trying to avoid it, I guess.
Matai, yeah, Ian, this is still good CGI.
It is, no doubt about it. The CGI is really good, but as I said, subconsciously, it takes you out of it because you know it's CGI.
Yeah,
and the real sets and the real costumes are so intricate and they're so well done that any slight difference in quality between that and CGI makes the quality difference seem much bigger. So, like the big panoramic shot you see, there's just something about the texture that isn't quite as alive as, say, that armor is, for example. The detail that goes into that makes the CGI stuff a little bit more obvious. It didn't completely throw me out, but it did. You do notice when it's not sets and when it isn't real.
Here you go, folks. I know Time Prophet is a bit of a computer whiz with the graphics. The reason it doesn't look real is the bad lighting.
But also, in the beginning, Time Prophet, I don't know if you noticed it, when the dragon was flying into the city or the town or wherever it was, they really do look like matte shots. And knowing you can create 3D images with CGI and actually add the light in yourself and stuff like it, it was weird. Maybe it was deliberate. I don't know. But anyway.
Time Prophet says bad lighting, but does he possibly mean the differences in lighting between some of the CGI shots and the standard film?
Maybe, I don't know.
So in some scenes it's kind of overcast, and then in the CGI it looks as if it's bright and sunny.
Maybe.
Bit of discrepancy there. Maybe that's his. That's a demon having his. Are you not entertained? Scene.
That's a very good Cyberman outfit.
And then there's the demon being caught after prematurely claiming victory.
Yeah, but he gets twatted, doesn't he?
I thought this guy spoke like Christian Bale and looked a bit like Rob Newman from Newman and Baddiel when he spoke.
A bit, yeah. But he was trying to chat up the 8-year-old girl, wasn't he? It's weird.
All right.
Sir Kristen Cole from Dawn. Asking for an 8-year-old's favour. Let's not go there.
Yeah, exactly. This bit. I remember seeing. I actually watched this bit. This was like, what?
I cringed pretty heavily throughout of this. Couldn't wait until this was over, and it was kind of strange the way they cut both of all the scenes together, which I've thankfully removed just for the benefit of doing these slides.
Yeah, because there was back and forth, wasn't it, between the joust and this. And I know that scene got quite a lot of controversy because people read into it the link with the abortion thing, and then the writers sort of played that up, and they said, "Well, I think the scene definitely matters more because of Roe v. Wade and stuff." I think it's one of the most unpleasant scenes you could possibly watch. I think it probably is one of the most effective scenes you could possibly watch, and I think that even if they did intend to make some kind of allegory or analogy, I don't think it really did stand out. If that's their level of allegory, then I'm happy for them to carry on because this is brutally realistic and an actual event, an occurrence that was not uncommon in the time period in which this is set. It does actually present that really stark, horrible choice. There's no championing this, obviously. And the only problem with it, I think, was just the fact that, again, pacing-wise, this is an emotionally impactful scene, but partly because they keep cutting backwards and forwards, and then partly because they have to move on so quickly. You don't really, in the end, feel as much emotion as you kind of want to feel when you see like the characters reacting to it. The princess name has already gone. You don't even see her reaction to this. You actually just hear about it off screen in the next scene when someone says, "Well, she just lost her mother." Could probably have done with actually seeing some of the actual sort of the horror and the grief and everything like that.
Before it started, they had a warning, didn't they, in the beginning? I watched it on Sky, and they had a big warning saying, there's this, there's that, whatever, so be warned, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I found this scene quite horrible, to tell you the truth.
This is a kind of blink and you'll miss it moment where he's looking at the baby with concern. Mm-hmm. I didn't notice this the first time, and then you see the next slide.
Yeah.
After he's,
I thought that was who was that guy? The black guy.
It's what's his name? Steve Toussaint.
The actor, I mean,
the actor. That's the actor's name. Steve Toussaint. Yeah.
Steve Toussaint.
Yep.
Did you say?
Is he French?
It looks like a French name.
Okay.
What I thought he was Billy Ocean at first.
Really?
One of those Matrix haircuts.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does have one.
He's a British actor of Barbadian descent. He was in Judge Dredd, Sands of Time, Prince of Persia, Shooting Dogs as well.
And Caribbean Queen.
He sang it. Yeah. I must admit, the costumes are lovely. Well, I say lovely. Good. Yeah, they're really cool. The costumes are cool.
That's one of the things that saddens me about some of these productions. When the writing's off, but the art and the costumes are just consistently knocking it out of the park.
Well, they can't go wrong with a budget like that, can they? Let's face it.
Stories written in the back of a fag packet. It
boggles
boggles the mind, doesn't it?
Well, mind you say they can't go wrong with a budget like that, but I think some of the shots for the Rings of Power thing, their chainmail is actually quite clearly made of it's not actually chainmail, it's like rubber outfits. There's a couple of shots where even in the trailers and the stills, it just looks awful. But Game of Thrones has always been really luscious with its sort of character design and costume design, and it's good to see that they've kept that quality going through it.
Do you remember the scene in Game of Thrones? I think it's Ian Glenn's character. He's been brought back into the fold. It must have been one of those horrifically windy days, and just about everyone's got their cape over their head, blowing in the wind. Pieces flapping in the breeze.
Where did they shoot it? Did they shoot it in Wales or something? I can't remember where they shot
Northern
it.
Ireland is generally where they film. I don't know quite where they filmed this one.
I think this one is Portugal.
They filmed some of it in Dune Castle in Scotland as well.
I thought it was really weird, this scene that they got the dragon to I was like, couldn't they not just dignified it, just set it alight with like some torches or something? They get a dragon to freaking burn it to bits.
If I bring out my geek head, the dragons can destroy bone with the heat they generate. God, it sounds such a
I know, but usually when you like in Return of the Jedi, it was kind of really slow when they were burning Darth Vader, and in other films I've seen when they do that, it's kind of the savoring the moment or saying goodbye properly. But with the dragon, it just goes poof, and it's all gone within seconds. I don't know if you feel it that way, but
unless Jon Snow is hiding behind the rock, in which case the rock conveniently does not get destroyed, but everything else does.
Exactly.
This is Hightower.
Oh, is it where?
This is this is the Hand of the King, Otto Otto Hightower calling a special meeting to decide the new heir.
I was awake with this scene as well. So was it he was going on about how he didn't know, something like he didn't know who to put, whether him or his daughter, and everybody was disagreeing and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And he's like, my wife just died, my son just died. And he walks out of the room. Isn't it that scene?
That's it. That's exactly it. Demon's earwigging.
In the chats, Time Prophet, fire can burn bone. Bones tend to turn to jelly when heated.
That kind of alarms me that the Time Prophet knows that level of detail. Moving on.
Surprise.
Moving on.
Everyone has beards.
Yeah, they do. This is the Hand of the King handing over the parchment to let the maesters know at Old Town what's going on. As it's his job.
I must say, the performances are quite good, isn't it? No one really sticks out as being really bad.
All pretty solid, isn't it? A whole new cast, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Go shag the king.
In the chat, Melvin Deeply, shame Bubba Smith's dead. He'd be a great Hightower.
He would, wouldn't he?
He would. Just shooing for it, mate, yeah?
Michael Winslow's still in the go.
But am I wrong about that scene where he was telling her to go and cheer up there? I'm probably wrong.
I thought the previous bit I thought he did, but when it came to it, I didn't think there was anything going on. But
right.
Time Prophet in the chat at Mr. Brown Alliance. That's me. We had to burn animal bones in human biology at school.
Thank God.
I had to cut up a frog at human biology at school. Don't do that anymore, do they? You can't cut frogs anymore.
Did bullseyes when cutting up bullseyes when I was at school.
All right.
And I nearly keeled over. Fuck it. Not for me, biology. And this is the whorehouse of Demon Targaryen.
Oh, this is much better.
Mourning in his own special way. Before being asked to give a bit of a speech in front of, well, you know what happens here. And he does so by mocking his deceased nephew and letting the side down badly.
Well, I can't see him as a bad guy, but I'm pretty sure him, as the show goes on, he'll be despicable. Who knows?
I thought he was okay. I haven't seen much of Matt Smith, to be honest. I mean, you know a lot more, obviously, him being in Doctor
Pooh, yeah. Do you, seriously, just as a filmmaker, do you know how fucking long it takes to get those, unless this is done by CGI, the streams of light through those windows? It's probably done by CGI. You have to fill the
machines and things put in.
Yeah, and then you have to flap the smoke to make sure it. And geez, it takes. I was shooting something over the weekend with smoke in it, and I was like, can we not put it in CGI? So I think that might be CGI actually.
Just bring some dope fiends in.
Yeah,
a couple of hours. Lord Strong and Princess Rhaenyra. There's a character called Lucamore Strong, known as Lucamore the Lusty in the books, and he's got a horrific fate. I'm sure that some of the chat will probably know that. Matt will know that, but I won't mention it
here. Time Prophet rays coming in through the window are CGI.
We might, I wouldn't put it past it that it was CGI.
It's easier, isn't it? It's easier. Yeah. See, stuff like that enhances it, doesn't it?
I guess. They can do a lot of things now with CGI. I remember a long time ago I was watching behind the scenes of Young Indiana Jones, and they showed this scene where they were talking about the effects, and they said, if we want to rub this guy out, we can do it. And they did it. They rubbed out this guy. He was walking through this scene and they rubbed him out. I was like, how the hell did they do that? And now I know how they do it. It's all CGI rubbish, isn't it? So
I remember them doing that back in even the Phantom Menace days. I think George Lucas was one of the pioneers, being able to take out one performance, use one performance from one take and another performance from another take and blend them both together, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. And what is it? Sin City, they had a couple of people that weren't there. So they shot one side and they shot the other, and because they were on green screen, they stuck them all together like they were there in one room. Something like that.
They did that in the Orville as well this last season.
Oh, did they? Oh.
With Dolly Parton and the other woman.
This is bloody coincident. Ernie's crust here. This is where he banishes Damon.
Strips him of his heirdom, whatever his entitlements to be heir. But it's another one of those ones because like the preceding scene was another one of those where they cut essentially two scenes together and cut back and forth between them. So you see the speech happening at the same time as you see the account of the speech being given to King Viserys. That's the one. And yeah, it's a nice idea, but again, like I can't help but compare it to sort of the way in which Game of Thrones did it, and it's like that's the kind of thing that could maybe be a plot that unravels over the course of the episode, and then you realise this at the end. But they do, for time reasons, have to cut the two things together, and it works sort of. It looks quite impressive, but I think it did come across as a little bit rushed. Like this was clearly the thing they wanted to get to as quickly as they possibly could in the first episode, as opposed to allowing his sort of traitorousness to come through over time.
But when you make a big thing like this, there's producers and there's people interfering. I mean, that the director probably didn't have free reign and he was pushed for time and all that, even though it's a really expensive production. In fact, the bigger the production, the more stupid people you have working above you who you really don't understand. So this show probably suffers from that fate as well, so. You'd think that all that money they could pace it a little bit better, and because as far as I'm concerned, it was directed pedestrian. It was like A to B shots. There wasn't anything special about any of it really, direction wise. So
this is Viserys cutting his hand on the blades of the Iron Throne. This is actually a callback to in the books. It's a habit that the Mad King Ares did on a regular basis.
What does that mean, though? When he cut his hand, what does it mean?
Nothing. It's just he's getting angry and upset and forgetting that he's like sitting on a throne of blades. Basically, that's it.
Oh, I thought it meant that if you cut yourself, then you're not worthy or something. I don't know. I'm guessing here.
They didn't have tetanus shots in those days, so madness comes from there.
This is Daemon saying goodbye to the dragon.
Why? Who's the dragon?
Ego in, Time Prophet, at the Mega Geek, that's you. The term you are looking for is too many cooks.
It's true. I've been on productions like that, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. They just leave the creatives to doing their creative stuff.
Too many KKs.
Yeah.
One is too many KKs, if you ask me, but anyway.
Sorry, go. No, go.
Oh god, dragons are actually supposed to be intelligent enough that they recognise people. Anyway.
Really?
Yes. And this law is.
Oh, okay. I was about to say that the first time, I think it was the second time Spielberg directed an episode of Columbo, he had this shot where he told the actors to stand in the middle of the room, and then he said, "Just don't move for 15 minutes," and he went off with the camera people, and they were standing there wondering what was going on. Didn't realize they were going across the road to the next building to shoot right from there into that room. And when they saw the episode, they were really amazed that this young guy, Spielberg, who was like 21, 22 at the time, wanted to do that shot completely. So do you know what I mean? It's just it's about talent, really, at the end of the day. And in those days, they did give directors kind of the free rein to do what they want within reason. But I think filmmaking and TV making has become so corporate that it's just become stale. Even a show like this should be really spectacular. You should be really invested in it. But it just feels a bit stale to me. I don't know about you guys, but anyway.
Like everything's on a time limit.
Yeah.
With interference.
It's a shame we don't get to see more of that creativity, but studios are just don't want to take a chance anymore.
Yeah, so much money, I guess.
This is King Viserys telling Prince Rhaenyra that she is the new heir, and he's getting her up to speed pretty rapidly.
Even though you're 8 years old, you're going to be queen one day. Just stay away from them,
folks. Time Prophet. Actually, in Game of Thrones, male dragons are the ones who lay eggs.
Well, there you go, trans inclusionary, straight from back in the day.
Well done, Time Prophet. Well done. Moving on.
Anyone recognise this? Someone must.
What is it?
The dagger.
Oh, is that the Valyrian steel blade dagger thing that kills White Walkers?
Is it a lightsaber?
It is indeed. It's the one that Arya. It's the one that Arya uses. The cat spot. It's the one that Arya uses too. Oh. It was Peter Baelish's blade. When he held Ned Stark's throat.
I wouldn't know that.
Here you go, folks. Melvin Deeply. Does anyone know how many seasons they're planning for this?
No, they don't know either. So if you read interviews with them, they've got one nailed down. They have ideas for what they could do if they are given more, but they're quite broad ideas, including prequels and spin-offs. So I don't think they have a clear idea, and it's not been confirmed at the moment. I don't think.
Do you get the feeling that if it's better than Rings of Power, they'll greenlight it?
And it'll have to be more than just better than Rings of Power. And I think that given the budget, it'll have to do well on its own terms. It will actually have to bring money in. It's not quite the same, again, because it's owned by Warner, so it's not the same as big streaming companies like Disney and Netflix and the like, which will happily take on massive amounts of sort of debt to do this and use it to boost brand. These network TVs do actually, I think, have to make money.
HBO,
yeah.
Yeah, it's HBO, isn't it? Yeah.
Can't believe she's 22.
She does look very young. Very, very young. In fact, I would say she was 10. Very young. She looks to me. But, strange, isn't it?
So this is the Lords waiting in line to pledge fealty. You'd be pleased to know we've only got a few more of these slides to go before we can get out of Dodge.
But what do you reckon? Do you reckon that's a real place, or do you reckon a lot of it is complete in the set via CGI? It looks real to me.
I would have said it was half and half.
Yeah.
In the chat, new face, James Stockdale. I get the feeling with this, if this season goes well, they'll do a Robert's Rebellion prequel.
Is the ratings good on this one? Anybody know?
I think it was 10 million US.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good then. I guess.
The US it is, yeah.
I would love to see a Robert's Rebellion, as long as you can get a decent cast for it.
I would just be slightly wary about turning this into another expanded universe, multiverse type thing. We've got so many of those, and if they're gonna say very early on, okay, we're gonna give you more seasons, I would much prefer it if they stuck with a contiguous story and actually kept the timeline going, as opposed to jumping around, which they're already going to do in this show anyway. That's the great thing Game of Thrones did really well. The way it did sustain its fans' attention was because it was a linear story. You could easily trace past events to future events. It was deep enough that people who were really invested could also trace the niche little things that make subsequent scenes even more impactful. Whereas if you're going to say, well, we'll do this series set in this multiple time period, and if it gets a sequel, well, fuck it, we'll go another couple of hundred years into the future, and then we'll do something else with different sets of characters for 10 episodes. I'd rather have another very long run of Game of Thrones style length, so you can actually flesh out these characters properly. Because there is really good potential with the world and the characters that have been built for this show. I just think the problem is already they're trying to rush too quickly through it. And they wouldn't have had to do that if they sort of banked on a multi-season arc from the beginning.
Here you go, Melvin Deeply. The trouble is that when things are successful, they try and squeeze out more seasons out of them, so the quality of the writing drops away to nothing, and things that were great end up being mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, it depends.
USA thing, isn't it?
You can sustain it with source material, so there is justification for extending a story which has a book already written for it. And Game of Thrones is the classic example of what happens when you run out of source material. So as long as there's more of George R.R. Martin's stories to tell, then I wouldn't be opposed to them telling them, because he can write, he knows how to build worlds, he can do character from what I gather. And so you're not... Basically, the more involvement screenwriters have, the greater the possibility that they will just fuck everything up. So as long as they are just adapting his George R. R. Martin's work, I don't have a problem with them continuing it. But if they run out of that work, they should stop. And in the case of Rings of Power, if they don't have access to that work, they shouldn't even start.
Brian, what's happened on this? What's happening in this scene then?
This is the very last shot of the first Targaryen queen to be. And what we just saw through the last slides was the pledges of fealty by Rickon Stark, Lord Strong, and Lord Corlys. And Baratheons, obviously, as well. So that's it for the slides.
So it's based.
Brown, you can take over from me with as quick as you can.
I think that's it, folks. Here we go. Please consider donating to the channel. Links in the description, pin message, all that bollocks. I will thank the chats. Always the same peeps. Couple of new faces. Good to see you all. Thanks for the input as always. We are truly nothing without you guys. It was a bit of a short notice one, this. So great to see you. Great, as it were. I will ask the guests their final thoughts of the episode. Ian, could be a tricky one.
Yeah, very tricky. As I said, what I've seen of it has kind of just left me cold. I don't.
I'm like you, mate.
It's not my cup of tea. I do appreciate the work that's gone into it. And the costumes and all that stuff. That it looks great, but it's just not the kind of stuff that I'm into at all. I do like Matt Smith. I think Matt Smith is he's a brilliant actor. I mean, beyond Doctor Who, he's starred in a lot of stuff, and he's very versatile. So I don't know what he's going to bring to this day. Maybe he's going to get killed before the season finishes. Who knows? But I guess they put him in there because Doctor Who fans, I guess. But I don't know. I don't think I'll be watching the second episode, put it that way. There wasn't enough for me to be interested in what was going on. It was very ploddy. It was very slow. But anyway, that's just my thoughts.
You're just like me. It's just not your bag, is it?
No.
Lord, thoughts?
Well, again, I think I said at the beginning, my script for the review for this is the first time it's not just full of jokes taking the piss out of how dumb the writing is. That is a good thing. Yeah. I didn't find it especially gripping for a number of the reasons already set out. I think the pacing was wrong, too much crammed in, no protagonist to speak of, no one through whose eyes we can see. To the extent it's intriguing. I think flawed but intriguing is probably what I'll end up titling the video. It's like... Again, I think it's the difference between reading The Lord of the Rings and reading The Silmarillion. Once I'd flicked over to the mindset of I'm not actually watching a story taking place. What I'm watching is just luscious world building on screen with some myths, disconnected stories, quite potentially, throughout the rest of the series. So you're reading or watching a legendarium as opposed to a story. Then I was more at peace with it, but I would still have preferred it took more time, had more character, didn't throw so much foreknowledge at you on the assumption that you had that foreknowledge. And so I'm not particularly invested in the story, but I am sort of looking forward to seeing where it goes, paradoxically. So mixed bag. If I had to rate it, I think I'd probably give it a 6 or a 5. 5, that's nice and middle ground.
So sitting on the fence at the moment.
It's a very pleasurable place to sit.
Make sure you don't get any splinters on your arse, mate.
Yeah. Not Brian, your thoughts then, my friend?
Well, I'm going to engage full shill mode as I've been doing for most of this. Obviously, at the start, I had absolutely no interest in this, which probably helped the fact that I was able to enjoy it because I didn't have many expectations. I got into it pretty quickly. It was a pleasant surprise for me, and I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than I expected I would. And I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing more. However, having spoken tonight, I have clocked a few of the flaws, but hopefully I won't see too many more of them as it goes on.
Well, it sounds like it struck a chord with you, and you can just let us know if it's worth watching. Because I said, based on the first episode, I was very I found it very ploddy. So if it gets any better, let me know. Because it was the same thing with Breaking Bad. When I first saw season 1, I was like, oh no, this is just
shit.
Yeah,
it must be strange coming into it without knowing the stakes or who's who. Or to be honest, I didn't even really think of it that way, just because of so much of my own head canon and knowledge coming into it. For someone else who doesn't know the lore, it could be just, what the fuck is going on here? Which is a fault, really is a fault if they're bringing it in.
Yeah.
According to Matt well, friends, I have to say, Brian is the only one that has taste on this one.
Well, I mean, the guy has taste. He always had taste. Let's put it that way.
Bad taste. Time Prophet, not that. Brian, is from the land of the White Walkers.
Land of the Johnny Walkers, more like.
Okay. I think that's it, folks. We hopefully will be back on Saturday. If not, definitely be back on Sunday. The XTV executive Paul Chato is on. Hopefully, 99% confirmed.
Who?
The XTV network executive.
Has he got grey hair and glasses?
Yes.
Oh, that fella. Okay.
That sounded like a ringing endorsement.
No, I've seen one or two of his videos.
No, he's good. He's good. Yeah, some of his last couple of videos have really knocked it out of the park. So yeah. I think that's it. Melvin, it will be Sunday, I think, my friend. That will be. As I said, if we're not back Saturday, we'll definitely be back Sunday at 10:30. I think that's it. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. See you later. Bye.
Bye.